begin to see now the global central banks are preparing for this. Okay, they're preparing for the end of this dollar reserve system in anticipation of what comes next. A friend of mine, Willem Middelkoop, wrote a great book 5 or 6 years ago called The Big Reset. And in the back of it, in an appendix, he listed every single fiat currency since like the dawn of mankind that eventually failed, going back to the Romans. And because you just can't service the debt in perpetuity. And so eventually the system fails and it reverts back to some type of sound money anchor, which we walked away from in 1971 when Nixon closed the gold window. And so the world eventually, when the current fiat system is forced to reset, will go back to some type of sound money anchor. And that's why you're seeing now, last year, 2018, was the largest amount of central bank gold purchases since 1969. 641 metric tons of central bank gold purchases around the world. So far in 2019, we're at something like 420 or 440 metric tons of continuing purchases. We're on a run rate to exceed what we saw central banks purchase in 2018. These central banks are preparing for what comes next. I'll give you one more. There was something called the Washington Agreement on Gold that was signed back in 1999. And what it was a coordination between global central banks, Western central banks in particular, to coordinate and notify each other when they were going to be selling gold. Because that was all the rage back then. We're going to sell our gold. We're going to get some cash. We're going to, do all these things with it. Well, that expired. It didn't get renewed back in late August, early September. And the thought was, I wonder if this means more central banks are going to start buying gold. Well, lo and behold, we just found out earlier this week that for the first time since 1998, the German central bank, the Bundesbank, bought 3 metric tons of gold in September. First time. Now, one-off? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do in October. But now you got the Germans on top of the Chinese, the Russians, the Poles, the Kazakhs, you name it, that are acquiring gold. Why? Well, they're diversifying out of dollars, which is what you and I and everybody listening to us should be doing, because we all have dollar reserves and we should be buying hard assets and gold with it. But that's what these central banks are doing too. And why? Because they are getting ready. The old proverb is, he who has the gold makes the rules. And these central banks are preparing, again, for the eventuality. Are they reading the tea leaves? Are they panicking because all this is moving so quickly? Maybe. All I know is, like I said, if these central banks, including now the Germans, have fiat reserves and they're converting it into gold, and they maybe know what's coming, then shouldn't you and I, who have dollar reserves, our the hard work and savings that we have, shouldn't we be maybe converting some to gold too? I'd say that's probably pretty good strategy.
I tell my friends, on your pay period, go out and buy yourself 2 ounces. I can't afford precious metal. Go out and buy yourself an ounce of silver every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Hey,
you can't afford $20.
It's easy. If you don't mind, I'm going to plug a company that advertises on my site that I think is fantastic. It's called One Gold, and it's a platform like Bitcoin has or Coinbase has, where you can go on there and set up your bank account and hook it up, and like every 2 weeks or a week, they'll take $50 out of your bank account and buy little fractional ounces of gold. And it's the easiest thing in the world. Anybody can do it. And I'm, for crying out loud, like I just keep beating this point to death. If these central bankers who are wired in, right, they're the ones like Mervyn King and the guy at the UN telling the central bankers to get their act together. If these insiders know what's coming, maybe you should take their word for it and transfer some of your reserves into gold. And One Gold's just one way to do it. Anybody can just start Googling this stuff and figure out a way to do it. I just think it would, again, sound money we're going to return to that anchor at some point in the years ahead. If you've got some, you'll be protected from the madness. If you don't, you're going to go off the cliff with the rest of them.
We're going to get a new currency. I mean, you talked about Weimar. I mean, the debt's going to go away, right? I mean, when we talk about reset, people, we'll have a reset like it's some simple thing like some cock your umbrella or open. Oh, here, let me reset my umbrella. No, the debt's no good. So the debt's going to be defaulted on in a grand scheme, is it not? I always say that we've been told debt is money. That's a lie. And we've been told debt is an asset. A huge lie. We're going to find out both those are huge lies. I mean, this reset means the debt is going to be defaulted on, correct?
Yeah. See, and it sounds great if you're a debtor, right? I mean, if you're somebody with a couple $100,000 in student loans and Elizabeth Warren says we're going to forgive your student loans, woohoo! That's awesome, right? You think that's great. Well, if you're the holder of that loan, that's not so good. That's a pretty significant deflationary event for you because all of a sudden that asset just disappeared. I mean, you were counting as an asset, as you said. And so this idea of just a global debt jubilee is not as simple as people think.
It's going to be painful.
It's going to be It's going to be extraordinarily painful, and the process of going through it is going to be interesting because nobody really knows what to expect. But I think again we can compare this to, like the biblically we always talk about remember in the Bible it talks about birth pangs, right? You see that mentioned every once in a while. And what are birth pangs? Those are like labor pains, and as you get closer and closer to the event, the pangs they come more frequently and they get sharper, right? Any ladies ever had a baby, they know that's right? The contractions get harder and harder, and then all of a sudden, it's every 30 seconds, and then boom, the event happens. Could you make the case that the birth pangs of the new financial system are coming a little quicker? Isn't that what we've just been talking about?
Yeah, it could be. Talk about your website, tfmetals.com. I know you've been on before. You said you got a great online community. That's even, you said that, I write stuff on it, but, my online community is fabulous for you to be involved in. It's not very expensive. Talk about tfmetals.com. What do you have to do to be on it? And talk about it.
Well, I appreciate that, Greg. As I mentioned, you could listen to your stockbroker. You could listen to your brother-in-law. You could listen to Bloomberg. And they all would have told you back in January that everything was great, that interest rates were going up and the 10-year note was going to 4%, not 1.5%, and all that stuff. Or you could listen to TF Metals Report for a whopping $12 a month and have found out something else was pending. So that's what I do. I've got the stuff I post every day and a podcast I record every day. And you can interact with the community that comes from all religious stripes, political stripes, from all around the world. Everybody recognizing that we're all kind of in the same boat in preparation for, what's inexorably coming over the horizon, right? So anyway, it's a great community. I think the analysis is worth $12 a month, but I'll give you one more, Greg. I know we've done this before. It's $12 a month, but if you go to TF Metals Report, you pick a monthly subscription, you go to checkout, and you get a coupon code. Let's just use the coupon code HUNTER for Greg Hunter, HUNTER. You enter the coupon code HUNTER, you'll get half off your first month. So instead of $12 a month for a month, the first month, it's only $6 bucks. So what is that, 20 cents a day? Now, if you stick around past that, then you'll begin to renew every month at $12 a month, a whole whopping 40 cents a day. But to begin with, if you just want to come kick the tires and see if it's all that it's cracked up to be, get a monthly subscription to TF Metals Report, enter the coupon code HUNTER, and it'll only be $6 for that first month. But again, at a time like this, man, I don't know everything, right? No, who does? But I think I've got do a pretty good job of keeping my ear to the ground and connect the dots after a decade of doing this. People